The sky was red. Dust covered everything. The wind howled like a dying beast across the broken land. Shira ran barefoot through the dry sand. Her arms held something tight, a small, thin girl wrapped in old cloth. The child, Maya, burned with fever. Her skin was too hot, her small body shook in Zira's arms. "Maya, please stay with me," Zira whispered. "Don't close your eyes." But the child didn't respond. Only soft whimpers came from her lips. There were no more doctors, no more medicine. The village healer had shrugged and said, "She's too weak. The fever will take her." Zira had begged. She had cried. She had even fallen to her knees in the mud outside the healer's tent, but the healer only looked away. "Even if I had medicine, it wouldn't be enough. Leave her in peace, Zira. Let her go." Let her go? Zira looked at her child now, limp and shaking, and her heart screamed no. There had to be another way. In her mind, she remembered a story, a strange one, a tale the old ones whispered around dead fires. A human, a being not from this world, had once passed through the outer fields near the Forbidden Mountains. He was tall, strange, quiet, and he had helped a farmer when the crops were dying. He had used strange tools, glowing lights. His touch had brought life back to dying plants. No, one believed it, of course. Humans are dangerous, they said. Humans are ghosts. Humans left this world long ago, but Zira believed, and now she had no choice. She wrapped Maya tighter, took a deep breath, and turned her steps toward the mountains. The desert was cruel. The sun hung heavy and angry above her. Her feet bled, her lips cracked. Still she walked. Every few minutes she would stop and press her ear to Maya's chest. The child's breath was shallow, like a whisper in the wind. Not dead yet, but close. As the sun dipped lower, shadows stretched across the land. Zira spotted tall black rocks rising ahead, the edge of the mountain of bones. No one from the village ever came here. They said it was cursed, that the bones of ancient beasts lay scattered in the sand, that the spirits of the war lived here, that those who entered never returned. Shira didn't care. Her child was dying. She would walk into any shadow, face any ghost, if there was even a small chance. The ground grew rocky. Her legs ached. Her arms were numb from holding her daughter. But just when her strength started to fail, she saw something. A light. Not fire. Not starlight. It was soft and white, like a floating orb in the dark. It moved, slowly, across the rocks. Shira gasped. Her heart beat faster. It was real. Someone was there. She tried to call out, but her voice was weak. "Help, please." The light paused. Then it moved toward her. Shira stumbled and fell to her knees. She tried to lift Maya, but her arms shook. The figure stepped into the light, tall, broad shoulders, wearing strange armor, skin not like hers, pale, pinkish, eyes bright and alert. A weapon hung from his back. A human. It was him. The human looked at her, then at the child. His eyes narrowed. He crouched beside them. "I need help," Zira said in her own tongue. "Child. Sick." The human pulled something from a pouch, a small box with a screen. He pressed a button. A mechanical voice spoke in her language. "Speak again," the voice said. Shira repeated her words. This time the device repeated them in the human's voice. "Child. Sick. Help." The human nodded. He reached forward and gently touched Maya's forehead. His face turned serious. He looked at Zira, then pointed toward the cliffs, then to himself, then back to her and the child. His message was clear. "Come with me, I can help." Tears fell from Zira's eyes. Her knees gave out and she nearly collapsed, but her heart burned with hope for the first time in days. The human picked up the child and carried her like she was the most precious thing in the galaxy. He motioned for Zira to follow, and together, under a red sky full of dust and death, a desperate mother followed a stranger toward the unknown, clinging to the hope that a human might do what her own people could not. The wind changed at night in the mountains. It did not whisper. It howled, like angry ghosts chasing across stone. The old ones were right. The place felt cursed. Shira walked behind the human. Her legs trembled with each step, but she did not stop. Her daughter was in the human's arms, now silent, too still. The man had not said a word, but his pace was fast. He understood how little time was left. The rocky path climbed steeply. Sharp bones stuck out from the ground. Not animal bones. No, these were bigger, older, dark with age. The remains of a forgotten battle. The alien villagers called this place Terekvar, the place of silence. No birds sang here. No animals lived here. Only broken machines, half buried in dust. Shira could not speak the human's name, but she had heard it once when he pressed a button on his device. Carter. That was what the machine had called him. Carter. He moved like a soldier. Quiet. Controlled. He scanned the area, always watching. A rifle was slung across his back. His armor was old and scratched, but still strong. Zira didn't understand his gear, but she knew one thing. He was dangerous. But he had not harmed her. He had not feared her. He had lifted her dying child and walked without asking anything in return. They reached a narrow path between two cliffs. Carter raised his hand to stop her. He crouched and scanned the rocks with a small device. Trip mines, he said softly. The translator echoed, hidden danger. Stay still. Zira froze. He threw a small round ball ahead. It beeped once, then a sharp pop, and blue light flickered across the rocks. An old weapon system had activated. The path had been trapped. Carter disarmed it quickly with tools from his pack. He moved with speed and skill. Zira realized this man had not only lived through war, he had survived one far worse than hers. They walked for another hour. Zira's feet were bleeding now, but she did not stop, not when Maya needed her, not when this human had not given up. Finally, they reached it. A wall of metal stood tall in the moonlight, half buried in the cliff. It was no cave, no hut. It was the nose of a starship, a broken piece of the past. Old Earth dropship, Carter said. Crashed during the early wars, still has medical cache, I hope. He scanned the entrance. The metal was twisted and bent, but there was a way inside. The air inside was colder. Dust floated like ghosts. Strange writing covered the wall, symbols from a dead empire. Shira felt her breath catch. She had never been inside human tech before. Carter turned on a light from his wrist. It glowed bright blue. He walked ahead, cradling the child gently. They, past ruined chairs, broken screens, shattered helmets. Shira stared at a cracked glass panel with blackened handprints. What happened here? She whispered. Carter paused. Ambush. My people never even had a chance. He reached a sealed door. Med Bay, he muttered. He typed something on a pad. Red light flashed. Access denied. He swore under his breath. Then he looked around and found something. A small hole burned into the floor near the door. He pulled out a thin metal tool from his belt and started working. As he did, something echoed from behind them. A click, then another, and then a growl. Carter froze. They followed us, he said. Who? Zira whispered. He didn't answer. From the shadows behind them, 3 shapes appeared. Tall, armor-clad raiders, alien warriors with red eyes and cracked helmets. They held old blasters and jagged blades. One of them hissed, "You shouldn't be here, off-worlder. That tech is ours." Carter slowly placed Maya down beside Zira, then stood tall. His voice was calm. "She's dying. Let me take the medicine. You can have everything else." The raiders laughed. "She's not our problem," one said. And neither are you. They raised their weapons. Carter didn't wait. With one fast move, he pulled the rifle from his back and fired. The blast lit up the room. One raider fell. Zira screamed and covered Maya. Another blast, another raider fell. But the last one reached Carter and tackled him. They crashed into the wall, struggling. Shira watched in horror. Carter was strong, but the alien was bigger. A sharp blade flashed. Carter cried out. Blood hit the wall. Shira's hand touched something beside her, a metal pipe. Her eyes filled with rage and fear, for her daughter, for the man who didn't have to help, but did. She picked up the pipe and ran forward, and with all her strength she struck the alien raider's skull. Crack! The raider collapsed. Carter lay on the ground, gasping. His side was bleeding. Shira knelt beside him, panicked. He coughed, but smiled weakly. Doors open, he said. Behind them, the medbay had unlocked, and inside was hope. The door slid open with a long metallic groan. Inside the medbay, the air was still. The walls, once white, were now stained with time. Cabinets lined the room, many broken, many empty. But Carter moved fast, ignoring the pain in his side. His fingers moved over panels and drawers like a man who had done this many times before. Shira stood back, holding her daughter close. Maya's skin was pale now. Her breathing was shallow. Time was running out. Carter opened a case and pulled out a metal cylinder. It blinked green. Auto-injector, he said. Still good. He knelt beside the child and checked her eyes, her pulse. Then he glanced at Zira. I need her arm, he said, pointing. Zira nodded and unwrapped her daughter's thin arm. Carter pressed the injector to Maya's skin and clicked it. A soft hiss. Then silence. Shira held her breath. Nothing happened. 1 second. 2. 3. Then, Maya twitched. Her lips parted. A soft sound came out. A breath. Her tiny fingers curled, weakly around her mother's hand. She's breathing, Zira whispered. She's breathing. Carter leaned back and exhaled, his hand pressed to his bleeding side. She's not out of danger yet, he said, but that should stop the fever. Zira looked at him. This human, this stranger, had done what her own people would not. Why? She asked softly. Why help us? Carter looked up at the ceiling. The dim light above flickered. He didn't answer right away. Then, after a pause, he spoke. Because I know what it's like to watch someone die, and be unable to stop it. Zira frowned. She didn't understand. Carter reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn picture. It was printed on thin earth paper. Faded. From time, a woman and a child smiled in the photo. My wife, my daughter, he said quietly. They died on another world. There was fighting. I was too late. Zira looked at the picture. She could see the sadness in his eyes. Not fresh pain, but the kind that stays with you forever. I promised myself, Carter said, voice low. If I ever had the chance to save another life, I would. He stood slowly, wincing. But you're hurt, Zira said, her translator catching her worry. It's not the first time, he said with a weak smile. Won't be the last. He looked around the medbay, took a few more tools and supplies, then turned to Zira. You shouldn't go back through the mountains, he said. Too many raiders now. I have a place, safe. You and your daughter can rest there. Zira hesitated. Go with a human? Her people would never trust him, but she had seen who he really was, not a warrior, not a monster, not a ghost. He was a father who had lost too much. And now, he was the only reason her daughter was still breathing. She nodded. They traveled through a narrow canyon at night, moving, fast and quiet. Carter limped but refused help. They reached a hidden cave system carved into the side of a rock. The door was covered in vines. Inside, the place was filled with strange earth objects, tools, wires, cans of food, glowing lamps, and a working fire. Carter placed Maya gently on a soft bed. She was asleep now, her fever down, her breathing steady. Shira sat beside her, brushing, her small face. Carter sat across the fire, patching up his wound. "You live here?" she asked. He nodded. "Quiet, safe, no armies, no orders, just peace." She looked at him. "Why did you come to our world?" He paused. "Because my own world wasn't home anymore." There was silence for a while. The fire crackled gently. Shira looked at her daughter, then at Carter. She didn't trust easily, not in this world. But tonight she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not anger, but safety. Maybe, just maybe, this human, this stranger, was the miracle her people had given up on. The fire was low when Carter opened a hidden compartment in the wall of his cave. Shira watched him from the floor, her daughter now sleeping peacefully beside her. Maya's fever had broken, but her body was still weak. She would need more care, more medicine. And Carter didn't have enough. He pulled out a long, black case covered in old Earth symbols. When he opened it, a strange blue screen blinked too. "Life." Shira stood up slowly. "What is that?" she asked. Carter didn't answer at first. He stared at the screen like it hurt to look at it. Then, without looking up, he said, "There's a second dose, stronger. It's locked in a crash site 2 valleys from here." He tapped the screen. "Medical dropship. Went down during the last evacuation. High-grade supplies inside." Zira took a step closer. "Then let's go." Carter looked at her. "It's not that easy. That place isn't just broken, it's guarded." "By what?" Carter paused, then he said, "My kind." Zira blinked. "More humans?" "No," he said. "Dead ones." She didn't understand. Carter stood up and picked up a small silver sphere. During the war, Earth tech was built with defense AI. When the crew died, the system stayed active. That wreck thinks the war is still going. Zira stared at him, confused. "It attacks anything that moves," he said simply. "It doesn't know friend from enemy anymore." Zira glanced at Maya. "She won't last long without more treatment," she said. Carter nodded. "I know." Silence. Then he added quietly, "I was supposed to guard that ship. I was part of the team. But we were shot down before we landed. I was the only one who got out." Zira realized the guilt he carried wasn't just about losing his family, it was about failing his own people too. And now he wanted to go back to the very place where it all went wrong. "Let me come with you," she said. Carter shook his head. "You won't survive the traps." "You said the same about the mountains," she replied, "but I did." He looked at her, really looked. He saw not just a desperate mother, but someone who would walk into fire to save her child. He gave a small, sad smile. "All right then," he said. "We leave at dawn." The sun hadn't yet risen when they left. Carter led the way, holding a scanner in one hand, a rifle strapped to his back. Zira followed, wrapped in a cloak carrying a satchel of supplies. The valley was narrow and silent. The wind was sharp, and the rocks cast long shadows. They walked for hours. Then, without warning, Carter raised a hand. He crouched and pointed ahead. Shira followed his gaze, and froze. Up ahead, the land dropped into a bowl-shaped crater. At the center was a wreck. The ship was massive, half buried in the ground, its wings twisted, engines torn apart. Vines crawled over its surface, but strange lights still blinked along its hull. Shira could feel it. Power. Anger. Something inside still lived. "The AI is still active," Carter whispered. "It'll scan for movement, sound, heat." "How do we get in?" Zira asked. "There's a side hatch, under the engines." He showed her a path on the scanner. "But we'll have to crawl through a tunnel full of sensors," he added. She nodded. They moved carefully, keeping low, using broken rocks for cover. As they crept closer, a faint hum filled the air. The kind that makes your skin crawl. Then, click. A red beam passed over the ground ahead. They froze. Carter pulled out a smoke grenade. "Cover your eyes." He tossed it. The smoke spread fast, blocking the beam's sight. They dashed forward. A burst of light hit the smoke but missed them. They reached the tunnel just in time. Inside it was dark, tight, silent. Carter used a small flashlight. Every few feet they passed broken crates, dried blood, and silent helmets. Sierra's heart beat fast, but she didn't stop. They reached the medbay doors. Carter scanned his hand. Access denied. He swore under his breath. Too damaged. He took out a small tool and began unlocking it manually. Behind them, a faint thump echoed. Then another. Sierra turned. Her breath caught. From the shadows, something stepped forward. Not a human, not an alien. Something in between. A suit of armor. Tall, human-made. But walking without a pilot. Glowing red eyes, and a metal voice. Unauthorized access detected, preparing to engage. Carter stood up slowly, pulling out his rifle. "Time to earn our miracle," he said. The metal soldier stepped into the flickering corridor, its heavy feet thudding against the ground like a war drum. "Intruders detected. Security protocol eliminate." Its voice was hollow, robotic, but behind it was the ghost of a war that had never ended. Carter didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and fired. The blast hit the machine square in the chest, but it barely flinched. Sparks flew, but it kept moving forward, one arm lifting a weapon that glowed with a deadly red core. "Run!" Carter shouted. Sierra didn't need to be told twice. She turned and sprinted down the corridor, heart pounding, lungs burning. Behind her, the air exploded. Walls cracked, fire spilled out, and alarms screamed to life. Carter stayed behind for just a second longer, firing shot after shot until the rifle hissed empty. Then he turned and ran, smoke curling behind him. They dove into a side tunnel. The floor sloped steeply, leading deeper into the wreck. "What was that thing?" Sierra gasped. "Autoguard armor," Carter said. "It's supposed to be controlled by a pilot. That one's not." They reached a sealed door. Carter quickly used his tool to override the lock. It opened with a hiss. Inside, the secondary med vault. Glass cases lined the walls. Inside, real hope. In the center, a small cryo box. Blinked with a blue light. Carter rushed forward. "This is it." He opened the box. Inside was a sealed injector filled with golden liquid. Earth-grade nanomeds. These could cure a plague. He turned to Sierra. "We've got what she needs." But before they could move, boom. The door, behind them, buckled. The machine had found them. "We're trapped," Sierra said, backing away. Carter looked around. "There's another way out," he said. "Maintenance shaft." He pulled open a panel on the floor, revealing a narrow crawl space. "Go," he said. "Take the meds. I'll buy time." "No," Sierra said instantly. "You can't fight that thing alone." Carter gave a crooked smile. "I've been fighting alone a long time." He pressed the injector into her hands. "Your daughter needs this. That machine doesn't care about her." "I do." Sierra looked down at the vial. The liquid shimmered like light caught in water. She looked back at him, and for the first time saw him not as a human, not even as a soldier, but as someone who had chosen to risk everything for a child that wasn't his. Tears welled in her eyes. "Promise me," she said. "You'll come back." "I'll try," he replied. Then he turned. The machine burst through the door, its metal fist punching through the wall. Carter raised a second weapon, a small launcher, and fired. The row explosion shook the chamber. Sierra crawled through the shaft, gripping the injector tightly. Dust rained down around her. She didn't stop. She emerged into the outside crater, coughing. Behind her, the wreck was burning. Smoke rose high into the sky. "No," she whispered. "No." She turned back, but the entrance had collapsed. Hours passed. Sierra made it back to the shelter alone. Her daughter was still alive, but fading again. Her little body was cold. The fever had started to return. With trembling hands, Sierra used the golden injector. She whispered prayers in her native tongue. She kissed Maya's forehead and waited. Minutes felt like hours. Then, Maya opened her eyes. Her small voice rasped, "Mama." Zira broke into tears, hugging her tightly. She was alive, but her heart was torn in two, because Carter hadn't returned. That night, as stars filled the alien sky, Zira stood outside the cave watching the horizon. She held Maya in her arms, wrapped in a warm blanket. "Say thank you," she whispered to her daughter, "to the one who gave us a second chance." Maya looked at the stars. "Thank you." Carter. Suddenly, footsteps. Zira turned. From the darkness, a figure limped toward them, covered in ash. Armor broken, blood on his face, but alive. "Did I miss the celebration?" Carter said, voice rough but smiling. Shira ran to him. She didn't speak. She just hugged him, tight, desperate, grateful. He hugged back. In that moment, there were no species, no borders, no war, just three souls, bound by fire, blood, and the will to protect life. Carter collapsed just a few steps past the cave's entrance. His armor was scorched, his face pale. Blood ran freely down his side, soaking into the cracked earth. "Carter!" Zira cried, rushing to him. He tried to speak but only coughed. His lips were dry, and his eyes fluttered shut. She knelt beside him and pulled open his armor. The wound was deep, burned and torn. Whatever had hit him back in the wreckage, it had done more damage than he let on. "You walked all the way here like this?" she whispered, tears in her eyes. Carter gave a faint, crooked smile. Didn't want to miss the happy ending. But this wasn't the end. Not for him. Not if she could help it. She dragged him into the cave, using all her strength. Maya, awake now and breathing strong, watched silently from her blanket. Shira laid Carter down near the fire and ran to the medical supplies he had stored earlier. Most were empty. Just a few bandages, a needle, a broken scanner. No painkillers. No antibiotics, and only one thing left in the cold box, a final injector. The label glowed softly. "Emergency use only. High-risk compound. Not calibrated for alien biology." Her hands shook. This was meant for her daughter. She'd used the first dose. This was the second, but stronger. Too strong for her kind. Maybe even too strong for humans. She knelt beside Carter and looked at him. His breathing was shallow. He was fading. She stared at the injector. If she gave it to him, it might save him. Or it might kill him faster. The human body was strange. To her. Complex. And the injector's warnings weren't just words, but if she did nothing, he would die for sure. She looked at her daughter. Maya met her eyes, then looked at Carter. Then she whispered, "He's my family too now, Mama." Zira pressed her lips together and took a breath. "No more dying," she said. She wiped Carter's arm clean, found a vein like he'd taught her, and gently pressed the injector into his skin. Click. The hiss of the medicine filled the silence. Then, nothing. No sudden change. No magic recovery, just the quiet crackle of the fire. Shira stayed beside him, holding his hand. Time passed. Then, Carter's fingers twitched, his breathing deepened, and slowly, his eyes opened. "Shira," he whispered, voice dry. "I thought I lost you," she said. "Not that easy," he muttered. She laughed, tears falling. "You're not allowed to die anymore," she said. "Wasn't planning to," he replied. "But thanks for the shot." "You're welcome," she said softly. "Now you owe me." He smiled. "You already saved my child," she continued. "Now I saved you. We're even." He shook his head. "No, we're not." Later that night the storm came. Rain poured, down across the land, washing away the dust and the blood. Inside the cave, Carter sat near the fire, his wound now bandaged. Maya curled up beside him, warm and safe, holding his hand. Shira watched them, her heart full. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. Her people still feared humans, Carter still had ghosts chasing him. The world outside was still dangerous. But in this cave, there was peace. And something more powerful than war or medicine. A bond. Not just between alien and human, but between a mother, a child, and the man who chose to care, not because he had to, but because it was right. 6 months later, the land had changed. Once dry and broken, the desert near the mountain now grew small patches of green. Not much, just wild moss and thick roots, poking through the dirt, but enough to show that life had begun to return. At the center of that quiet place stood a small home built from stone and steel. It wasn't fancy, just a round structure with a roof made from salvaged ship metal and walls held together with love and stubbornness. Smoke rose from the chimney. Laughter floated out the windows. Inside, Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, playing with a small box that blinked and whirred. It was a puzzle device Carter had rebuilt from an old human toy. "Like this?" she asked. Carter sat across from her, grinning. "Almost. You need to press the yellow tile first, then twist the top." Maya furrowed her brow, focused. Shira entered, from the other room carrying a pot of something warm and sweet. "You've been at that for an hour," she said. Carter raised his hands in defense. She asked for a challenge. Maya nodded proudly. "Mama, I almost solved it." Zira smiled. Her heart swelled watching them. This was home now, not the world outside. This, them. But peace never lasted forever. That afternoon, a message drone hovered down near the hilltop, beeping for attention. Carter stepped out, shielding his eyes from the sun. The drone projected a pale blue hologram, a message from the Koroleth Council. He didn't need to hear it all to know what it said. They'd found him. Not just him. They had tracked down rumors of an alien woman who lived with a human, and claimed he had interfered with tribal matters, stolen ancient tech, and broken planetary borders. Sira stood beside him, reading the message over his shoulder. "They want us to come to the capital?" she asked. Carter nodded. "They say we must explain ourselves before the high seat." Maya ran out of the hut, sensing the tension. "Are they angry?" she asked. Shira bent down. "They don't understand, sweet one, but they will." Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll go," he said. "And we won't hide anything." 2 days later, the capital was large but cold. Wide gray buildings carved from stone, with watchtowers looming overhead. The plaza was filled with whispering voices. Aliens of every shape and size gathered to watch the strange visitors arrive. A human, walking beside an alien woman and her child. It was a sight few believed could be real. Guards flanked them as they entered the council hall. High above, 10 ancient leaders sat on thrones made of bone and glass. At the center stood the high priestess Velna, her long robes flowing like water. She pointed at Carter. "You do not belong here," she said. "You are not one of us. Yet you walk freely. In forbidden zones, you touch sacred ruins, you alter the course of life without permission." Her voice thundered. "And you," she turned to Zira. "Hide this being, protect him, and now, share a home with him." The room fell silent. Shira stood tall. She held Maya's hand, and then she stepped forward. "My child was dying," she said. No one helped. No healer, no council, no temple. Velna frowned. "It was not our will." Zira raised her voice. "It was not our care. We were abandoned, left to fate." She looked to Carter. He came with no promise, no reason to help, but he did. Some murmurs rose from the crowd. He gave her medicine, he fought for her, he bled for her, and then he stayed. She turned back to the council. "You call him an outsider, a danger, a rule breaker." She took a deep breath. "But to me, he is family." Velna stood. "You risk everything for this inhuman?" Zira looked straight at her. "I risked nothing. I gained everything." She turned and reached for Carter's hand. "I gained the man who gave me my daughter back." Carter said nothing. He didn't need to. The silence in the hall was louder than any argument. Velna slowly sat down. Then, surprisingly, one of the older counselors, a bent figure with glowing green eyes, spoke. Once, long ago, I fought in the human wars, he said. I saw their cities burn. I saw their machines crush empires. He looked at Carter. I also saw one of them carry a wounded enemy across a battlefield. To safety. He paused. If this one is the same kind, perhaps we have judged too fast, the council whispered. After long minutes, Velna finally raised her hand. We will not chase them, not today. Let them live. Let us watch. Zira bowed her head. Carter gave a quiet nod, but in Maya's eyes, it was victory. 1 week later, they were back at the stone home. The wind blew softly. The sky above was orange with twin moons rising together. Carter sat outside, his rifle resting beside him. Not for war, just for habit. Shira stepped out and sat beside him. She handed him a hot drink. You were quiet today, she said. He nodded. Just thinking. About what? He looked at her, then at the stars. I've spent most of my life trying to forget what I lost. Zira tilted her head. And now? He smiled. Now I'm trying to protect what I've found. She leaned her head against his shoulder. You've already protected us, she whispered. You don't have to do it alone anymore. From inside, Maya's voice rang out. Mama! Carter! Come look! The puzzle turned into a bird. They both laughed. Carter stood slowly, his muscles aching but his heart warm. He turned to Zira and extended a hand. You coming? She smiled. Always. Together they walked back inside, into the warmth, into the laughter, into the strange, beautiful life they had built out of nothing. They were not born a family, but they had chosen to become one. And in a galaxy full of war, fear, and silence, that choice was the loudest act of hope.